India as a brand for global capability centers. Do you think there's going to be a power shift where a lot of decision-making power, a lot of autonomy, a lot of innovation are going to happen from India?
How you can bring the business vision down to GCC and then sort of split it into multiple ways, because every level will see the vision in a different way because of how people perceive the business on it. Are they pure OKRs? While they are, there are certain things which can't be captured in OKRs and goals. Seeing things beyond that is one of the skills that GCC side leaders should have. And that's where the transformative mindset and that's where the value creation and strategic mindset will happen.
Dr. Rajesh, you're often known as a leader who puts people first. How do you think that philosophy is important in today's times as we set up GCCs to thrive for the future?
People are our biggest asset. True. Now, I'm not going to be sitting down and obviously solving some big enterprise strategic problem. Obviously, it will be all done by humans and people. And then these are the people, they can use technology to either fast track, expedite, or things which are required for us. Expecting a GenAI or an AI to solve 100% of your business problem is not going to be a right expectation. So that's the reason the people is first. Leaders have the answers to every question.
If you were to define the future of GCC workplace in one word, what would that be?
Digitally inclusive, aligned to headquarters state.
What's next for you? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting episode of the 𝗚𝗍 Show. We all talk about global capability centers and the future that awaits. The future that awaits in India and the future that the world is going to benefit by having their capability centers here in India. It is my immense pleasure to have our next guest who's not just spent 30 years in this industry, he's really played a lead role, a transformative role in shaping up of what an ideal GCC should look like. From his early days of careers to moving back from the US to India to help set up few operations and then scaling up to a level where these are successful GCCs, Dr. Rajesh Puneyani has been a national figure in this space, and it is my pride and honor to have him with us on the show today. Currently serving as the site leader for CanView India, Dr. Rajesh Puneyani, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sunny, for having me. It's a pleasure and honor to be in front of you and in this such a fantastic studio that you have set up. Pleasure is mine.
Pleasure is all mine, Dr. Rajesh. But I want to start by thanking you for... We're talking in front of the camera today, but I think over the last few months of our association, I only managed to get more and more enlightenment about the industry, about GCCs. I think our industry, our fraternity, and India as a whole should be very proud of you as a soldier in this game who continues to march forward selflessly and help so many people around you.
Oh, it's so kind and sweet of you, Sunny, to say that. And I would say that my journey is still starting, and I'm still as much a student of this game as I'm a leader in this game. And with the platforms like the Leadership Federation, yourself, and this kind of a message, of course, I think the message continues to get stronger. And thank you so much, of course. And I can't wait to give this whole conversation forward. And thank you once again for the opportunity.
No, likewise. Rajesh, we'll start with your early life. We want to know how Rajesh became the Rajesh Puneyani of the industry that we know. Starting from the beginning, you are obviously known for being a transformation leader. You set up technology, you work for BFSI, you've done it all. But how did it all start?
Going back memory lane 30 years, of course. All right. So it is, I think first of all, I always feel very blessed. There again, I've been at the right place at the right time, doing the right things, of course. But obviously taking it back, I come from a middle-class family with, parents to raise and bring up 4 siblings, multiple, their, sisters and brothers and all. So it was always an environment of intense competition within the family. You do this and you earn this, like a pocket money. You do this kind of things, of course, you get that. And I go back to those memory lanes and I see some of the foundational strengths that, of course, I've got is because of that competition. Nothing comes easy. You need to obviously, do something. You need to earn it to get it, of course. So I think that is foundationally who I am right now. And I think my other siblings and my other family members too. Now, that means, academically, I was always blessed to be very strong from a bookish point of view. Being there at the right place. My parents always continue to support me in my journey. And then again, as things continue to progress, I continue to move forward from an academic point of view. Graduation in Delhi, masters in the computers application, supposed to be a very privileged course that time. I was picked up for that as well. So that obviously started my journey, of course. But my real journey started from a professional point of view when actually I started working for a company in Delhi, and I got picked up to straight away lead to an international location to go for that client engagement. And trust me, that was the first time anybody within my family had ever been to a plane. Way back in '96, I'm talking about. So that again came as a blessing, and of course that was a great blessing because that professionally sort of uplifted my whole professional profile within my first year of journey. And I'm actually going to an international location, being in front of the foreigners and strangers, and then conduct myself and put to use the all foundational things that of course I have learned over the past. Then one thing led to another. That experience took me to US for a few years. And that's when my professional and my personal evolution started to happen. Because when you are in a foreign land, you have to learn a lot of new tricks of the trade. You have to unlearn a lot of things in order to learn something new. How do you conduct yourself? And that was the time we didn't have WhatsApps, we didn't have chats, and we didn't have messages. And one phone call to India over a weekend costed almost a few bucks that time. So how do you live with that frugality? How do you live, without those kind of channels, which a lot of us take us for granted these times, that continue to make me stronger in terms of how do you make the best of the resources that is available to you while continue to move up. One thing that always obviously was very prevalent and very strong in me was continue to learn new things, whether the new cultures, new new education part of it, new certifications that you took, or obviously continue to excel in the organization so that you continue to move up. Because I'm never a person who will sit down and say, this is my plateau, this is my platform, and I'm not going to be going forward as well. So those kind of small little baby steps or small little baby learnings, and there were various ups and downs in those. And obviously over the next hour or so, we will continue to talk about that as well. Continue to make me who I am. My zeal for doing something better. And I never take it as, this is the best, of course, that I can get. My next day should be better than the previous day is what my motto. That's what continues to drive me to the excellence. And then again, the big break for me, which obviously got me into the GCC industries when I got back to India through one of the early assignments in GCCs, that was for Dell. And that started me into this GCC, of course. And then, of course, after that, it is all one thing led to another. Dell became IBM became Oracle, Oracle became Wells Fargo, Wells Fargo became Lowe's, and from Lowe's to obviously Kenvue. So that's who I am, and I'm sure I'm continuing to still learn, as of course we see. The GCC that I saw 20 years back is not the GCC that exists anymore. I'm sure you know that. And we will continue to peel over the next 1 hour what exactly those layers mean, of course. So that's who I am.
You work with some great logos, but I want to reflect back upon that moment of your journey. You're talking about 90s, we're talking about early 2000, where everybody wanted to relocate to US and spend their careers and build their lives there. You took a bold step. You were at your peak. You had a set career, a set life in the US. You decided to come back to India and help build companies here in India. Can you tell me a little bit more about what led to that brave decision that you took at that time?
Fantastic. So, Sunny, you said it in a word in your question itself. It's the set journey and the set life I had. I'm never happy with the set life. That again is, you like adventures. I like adventure. I like evolution, of course. Nice. See, your evolution, the moment it stops it, you stop enjoying the journey. And I don't think even after retirement, I'm going to be seeing like a set pattern. But 2 or 3 things happened around the same time, which forced me to take that decision. First of all, in 2004, of course, I lost both my parents in the same year because of certain health complications. So that was one part. And then my son was born in US in couple of years before that. So he was about to get into school. So we were sort of taking it as indication that, personally, we have lost our parents. We never wanted our son to go to school in a foreign land, obviously, over the period of time. We wanted him to learn Indian culture.
Right.
And that's when I think the triggers just came together. And then again, didn't want to get set into a set life, comfortable H-1B life, visa life, and go through a green card. I wanted to come back where obviously the most of the action was happening. And that was the time after the dot-com bubble burst in 2000, the overall, outsourcing, offshoring from US to India was happening. And I wanted to be part of that firm in terms of catching that action rather than responsible for sending the action. sort of writing my own obituary, if you say that from a professional point of view. So I just clump those trigger points. And again, like I said, everything happens like a blessing in life. So those opportunities happened, and I got the opportunity to, relocate. And that is when 𝗏𝗏 was happening. And again, I got picked up there again. So, you don't go by a set pattern and set design in your life. You be as agile and flexible, and then see where divine wants to take it, because divine is always very strong in terms of seeing what is best for you and your ecosystem. So good for my son, good for my wife, because she came closer to India, from an overall family point of view. Good for me as a professional, because now I look back 20 years, 2005, when I relocated, life has been absolutely great and blessed because of the number of assignments, number of new things I learned, number of new cultures I learned in the process, which I think if I would have just been in US for those 20 years, I would have grown financially probably, but not from a professional and from a personal development point of view. So that was 2 or 3 trigger points which led me to come back to India.
That's very interesting. During your earlier years in your career, in your formative years, you're deeply involved in infrastructure and delivery. What are those lessons and takeaways from those days, from those years that you spent in infra and delivery that continues to help you as a site leader in multiple capacities?
Wonderful. Again, great. So, Sunny, if you see the overall technology stack, there is a front end, there is an application, and there is a middleware, and there is an infrastructure. While infrastructure, cloud, delivery, service management is very critical for a very sustainable, reliable operations across the whole stack. But if you see from an overall visibility point of view, client, the business, and the users, and the top CXOs, they generally see the front end as, obviously the engineer to the application. So which means the people who are on the front end obviously are always getting the key, the limelight and everything. But people who are foundationally setting up the whole frame, whether it is from a security, from a cloud and infrastructure, they are the ones, they are doing a lot of heavy lifting. Not to say that the others don't do, but they are the ones who are constantly on the back end.
Sure.
So that is where my first lesson was. It is okay to be in the back end, because even a director of a movie is always behind the camera, but the outcome absolutely matters. So my first learning was, no matter what it is, you never have to feel discouraged because somebody is not calling you as part of a success of a full technology stack, because you set the foundation. The fact that the whole platform is successful because of your foundation should be a recognition in itself. So that's my first learning. So obviously I have to make sure that the teams that I'm leading, who are into the similar cloud infrastructure space or service management space, they keep feeling the same way. They may not always be in the limelight, but they always should continue to feel their work is being appreciated, because the application is appreciated. That is not hanging in space. That is actually running on that infrastructure and cloud. That is one. And second thing is, again, any issue somewhere happens, the same technology and foundational platform will be blamed for issues by default. Oh, something is down. Maybe application issue, but infrastructure is down.
Yeah.
That is when you need to continue to make sure that you're constantly evolving in that thought process, that you may not get the lime and active recognition, but you may still get blamed for something which is not. So you are proven guilty, otherwise proven innocent in that world, right? So continue to build that sort of a visibility for the organization constantly and consciously, so that people, the journey that I went through, people should not have to go through that, because not everyone psychologically will be very strong to feel that my platform or my cloud or my infrastructure is not doing it. Third thing is from an overall cost and cost of operations point of view. See, the cloud and the infrastructure generally are supposed to be very expensive from a total cost point of view. So my learning is obviously, how do you continue to transform so that obviously the total cost of ownership from your infrastructure, cloud and platform point of view becomes sort of as mean and lean as possible, and as simple for the others to use this, because you exist because somebody from an application team may want to tap into your infrastructure to get some systems provisioning and all that. How can you make that journey more peaceful? How can you make that journey more self-service? How can you make it more automated? That is the beauty of your role, that you are not in the limelight. You are obviously always being blamed for something, but you have to always cut down the cost in terms of how do you measure the total cost of ownership. Still continue to see your application people and users as your prime business users, and then keep life making easier for them. So now I see it from a non-cloud, non-infrastructure leader as a site leader. All functions are similar, because some of them will be in limelight, some of them will not be. So I have to see things from a uniform lens. Then everyone should get highlighted. Everyone should get a similar message. And they should not feel that just because another person is getting called out, the work of the other person is not important. For me, all functions are important. So those learnings continue to keep me grounded and continue to look up to those teams who are in that space where I was 20 years ago.
Well said, well said. It just makes you more inclusive leader.
Yes.
Because you've been in those shoes before.
Yeah. It's a conscious journey over the period of time, may become subconscious, but obviously a constant message from me to my cloud and infra team. Keep moving forward. Your recognition, your due will happen. Somebody is watching it. Just because it is not consciously called out, don't get demoralized. You need to keep moving forward. Without you, nothing else matters. That's a tagline.
Very well said. Rajesh, now let's talk business. You got into this game. You're one of the architects who really shaped up and built India as a brand for global capability centers, even before GCCs were called GCCs. What's your honest take about the GCC opportunity that we have here in India, forwarding ourselves to 2030? Where do you think this is going to take us all?
Fantastic. So the answer to the future lies in what happened in history to some extent. So let's just take a few seconds to go back where the history was. In 2000, early 2000, obviously when the GCCs were GICs, in-house centers, captive centers, obviously there was a reason why they were there, because there was a lot of demand for the talent, a lot of operating model related reasons that brought GCCs, because the team sitting in US constantly overloaded and burnt out with 24/7. So India served as a good platform for the companies to set up. There was not huge amount of digital and technology, the talent at that time in the system, but obviously there was a need that operating model fits in to follow this up.
Right.
So the tasks were being sent out, things started to happen, both sides were happy, and it worked out for everyone. Now, obviously, Indian ecosystem had to move up the value scale. So obviously the great policy framework from the governments, you talk about it, or the reverse brain drain of a lot of leaders and people who happened at that time, they brought in that kind of a cultural shift and the mindset, 𝗔 𝗔𝗍 more. We just are not happy with the current state of GCC or the work. We need more transformation. We need more strategic value-driven work and all that. So GCC is 2.0, 3.0, things started to happen, right? Now, obviously, some have actually scaled up so much. Obviously, they're at par, and in some cases, they are more than their headquarters also. Now, obviously, you see this, the whole evolution of, I see GCC from three lenses. Obviously, from my mind point of view, there is a seed, 1 point, which is GCC 1.0. Then there is a grow, which is 2.0. And then there is a thrive 3.0. What it means is you obviously start a GCC, you let it settle down in the soil and then start forming the roots.
Yeah.
And then you grow. So obviously the last 2 decades, it has been a grow. Okay. Some have grown faster, some are growing, and some obviously like a deadbeat probably have tapered off the system. Now that 2030 we are talking about, that's a thrive period. Thrive period in the sense the centers are going to be more transformative in nature. They're going to be driving the innovation charters for the organization. They need to be solving creating solutions for those problems, which are obviously not even on the roadmap of the leaders, because come to think of it, the business leaders sitting in the headquarters, they have hundreds of problems to deal with. Yeah. Shareholders, investors, the technology evolutions, mergers and acquisitions. Sometimes it is not easy for them to see what should they think about from a forward-looking point of view. That is when the GCC teams and GCC leadership team have to pitch in, because they have a huge and vast network of other GCCs, best practices, talent ecosystem, startup ecosystem, and the platforms like the Leadership Federation and all, which are bringing things together, right? To see, now you're not thinking about a problem because obviously you are obviously sustaining the business, but why are we not thinking about this? So while you think about it, I can create a prototype for you. I can create a MVP for you. And then again, if it is sustainable, you invest, and of course we take forward. So the GCCs of 2030 will not just be talking about, give me more work, give me more capability. While that is essential, they will be talking about, this is a problem you're not thinking, and I have a solution for that. And the solution will not come only in-house. The solution will come with a strong partner ecosystem, the strong startup ecosystem, and the internal capability that you would have built in. The GCCs of 2030 will be thriving on the business value and the business knowledge that will be sitting in India, not like my standalone the standalone capabilities that you're going to be talking about as well. And the GCCs of 2030 will be very heavily leveraging the latest technology trends that you're talking about, whether it is agentic AIs or generative AIs. And trust me, we haven't even scratched the surface of generative AI yet. We are just talking about some routine tasks being automated, and we think that is the potential. Yeah. If you really leverage it really well, it is actually going to be unlocking that value which nobody is even have forecasted. People are talking about it, but I don't think people have started to take a plunge into that as well. So we fast forward 2030, the technologically advanced, very strategic value creator, driving the transformation for the business sitting from India. And in some way, if I say that, rather than GCC leaders and GCC teams saying, seat on the table, some part of the table will exist in GCC as well.
Wow.
Okay. So that's the That's the whole vision. And that's a realizable vision, of course, that I'm seeing in 2020. 30 things will happen as well. And this is practically possible. This is happening in pockets. And again, it has to be more sustainable across the board. And the whole ecosystem will have to keep moving forward. 1 or 2, 3 GCCs moving into that direction is not going to be the success. All of us will have to carry each other forward from a best practices point of view, not reinventing the wheel, so that, what somebody has done it, others should be able to pick it up. And again, the GCC conclave and the platforms where people obviously talk about, I think these are going to be critical for us to see who is where, and let's pick it up where somebody has already left it, rather than again we go through the same churn, of course. So it's a very bright time for GCCs. India is the growth story that everyone is talking, and I'm very convinced about it. Backed by strong startups, backed by strong digital and engineering talent ecosystem, great policy frameworks being rolled out by the governments at the center level and at the state governments level. And of course, now that we have the domain and technology confidence that we can do it as well. So this is that 3.0 that I call it. Now it is the time for us to thrive.
As we get into the thrive mode, you made an interesting point. Do you think there's going to be a power shift where a lot of decision-making power, a lot of autonomy, a lot of innovations are going to happen from India?
Yes. So I'll give it in two ways. Yes, answer. But the GCCs will exist because of their parent headquarter and parent business companies. They will be taking decisions which are, first of all, in alignment with the main business of the parent organization. The decision making to accelerate some of the business transformation, yes, not to create a parallel track or a parallel agenda. Now, we exist because of the parent business, of course. So we need to make sure that we are always aligning our track with the track that business is giving their global OKRs, their business 3-year operating plan, 5-year operating plan. But how those will be accelerated, yes, the action, the innovation, the transformation, and the business decisions can and will be taken from GCC, ecosystem as well perspective. So that way, yes. But on the other side, yes, we have a tendency to see that sometimes the shift of, I necessarily would not call it a shift of power, shift of accountability and ownership, which is more like you now go ahead and take care. We know certain GCCs where obviously now the leaders are playing the global CIO role, global CTO role very successfully. And that hasn't happened just by chance and design and accident, right? It is all because you need to earn it. You need to obviously prove something before you are given that kind of a sort of a responsibility. So it should happen. It will happen. Will not be consistent. It all depends on how much you prove yourself before you say, now give it to me. I know what it takes to deliver. That's what the central, headquarter leadership team wants to hear.
That's a very interesting point, and I have a follow-on on that.
Yes.
So you also mentioned that as we get into a level of 3.0 from 2.0, not all GCCs will be at par, right? Everyone will have their own evolution curve. With the experience that you had, can you tell me 2-3 critical points that a site leader can keep in their minds, which could be critical to their success here in India?
Yeah. No, fantastic. So one is, of course, always keep in mind that you are here to make your parent business successful. You're not here to drive any additional agenda. So that should be your first of all vision, that is as sacrosanct and pure as possible. Second thing is always look at not like a head count, not look at the strength of the center. Always look at, what value you're delivering from Wisdom. And like I was saying in one of my previous discussions in conclaves also, we don't have to continue to prove our value story. If you're already established, then of course you need to write your new value story for the parent organization. Second thing is, don't think that you have to solve things in isolation. As a site leader, you should be able to, he may not have or she may not have the answers to all the questions.
Right.
But then whose doors to tap or knock to say, I have a problem, I need a solution. But to be able to knock at the right door, obviously you need to know whose door it could be, because the ecosystem is flooded with partners and startups and everything. You just can't do too much of an experimentation, of course. So that is going to be an extremely critical role, how you can bring the business vision down to GCC and then sort of split it into multiple ways, because every level will see the vision in a different way because of how people perceive the business only. Even your bottom level software engineer or whichever role that is, they should be able to translate the business vision.
Yeah.
So that's a business leader connotation that the India site leader should obviously be able to judge that. And third thing is, yes, solve the problem for the business by saying, this is something that I can create from India. It should be more of a transformative in nature in terms of, this is an innovation which I need, not because obviously somebody else is doing it. It is because I feel my business is going to be needing it. Now, the only challenge in this happens, a successful GCC is like a two-hand clap. You need to have a very strong executive sponsor in the headquarters. and that person should be able to have a very strong rapport with that leader in this the headquarter. The earthquake happens or a little bit of a GCC quake happens when either of them change, obviously, and the rapport and the work done over the past few months and years may have a potential to get derailed and all that. As long as those ecosystem specific things are happening, there is no reason why obviously site leaders should not be able to. Site leaders should be influential enough in the nature that even they can influence the business leaders on the headquarter site as well, or probably go to even the end consumers and business.
Sure.
And tell them what would they need and what this team is working on to sell their like. See, our problem sometimes is, again, I'm not generalizing, but in a little specific way, we feel whatever OKRs there of the organization are the pure OKRs. While there are certain things which can't be captured in OKRs and goals. Seeing things beyond that is one of the skills that GCC side leaders should have it. And that's where the transformative mindset and that's where the value creation and strategic mindset will happen.
Dr. Rajesh, you're often known as a leader who puts people first. How do you think that philosophy is important in today's times as we set up GCCs to thrive for the future?
Wonderful question, Sunny. And I think this is more important than ever in history, that we see humans and humans, people as people, of course, but for multiple reasons. See, the way the whole digital transformations or the whole rapid pace in which the technology is changing, one thing which is very common is who is making this change? It's the people. Now, if we create a change in technology or we bring new paradigm shift to replace people, that is not something which is an ideal use of the technology. And that's the reason, obviously, a lot of good, sensible people and platforms are talking about human in the loop always, because no matter how the whole digital landscape changes, human in the loop is always going to be required for a lot of value addition things and all that. And we are who we are because, people are our biggest assets.
True.
Now, I'm not going to be sitting down and obviously solving some big enterprise strategic problem. Obviously, it will be all done by humans and people. And then these are the people, they can use technology to either fast track, expedite, or things which are required for us. Expecting a GenAI or an AI to solve 100% of your business problem is not going to be a right expectation. So that's the reason the people is first. And second thing is you have your consumers, you will have your customers who are also people, obviously. And if you can't manage and handle your own people and your own employees' expectation well, you can't be really loyal and truthful to your end customers and all. Because in a lot of ways, your own employees are your consumers as well, of various too. So that way, of course, I think it is very paramount that, of course, we see people as people first because a good, a very happy individual brings a great professional at work. And if he can't send a good human back home, you can understand the repercussions and the productivity and efficiency or whichever measure you measure the organization, that's not going to be successful. And third thing is, obviously, you need to give it back in the form of, how do you develop those human also? You can develop a lot of technology, but if you can't develop your human, that's not a holistic development across us as well. We as a society, we as an industry will not be seen as successful if at the cost of rapid transformation, our humans are left behind as well. So that's the reason, very sensibly human in the loop and the people-centric, of course. I have a very simple philosophy for the people. You see people as people first before they are your resources, whether it's a data engineer, software engineer and all that. If you see them through the lens of a person who may have emotions, may have an off day, may have, a day where he needs more of a coach than, of course, a manager. That is when you bring out the best. And these are the people that will be laying their life for you, because obviously you care for their emotions and you care for the personality as well. So it's all about keeping it as simple as possible. You don't need too many checklists. You don't need too many templates for people to be treated as people. It's all about making them feel, who are you? How are things at home? Very simple things early in the morning. And that makes up the day for these people. I'm not just a commodity for them. They care for me. They care for my personal life. They care for if something happens to me, where I'm going for vacation or somebody's sick down. Very simple checklist. That is what creates people-centric leaders. And I strongly believe that we are the servant leaders, obviously, who are here to enable people to realize their potential as well. So if you can't be that leader enabling, you are the boss. You're not going to be able to hold on to the people for very long.
As a site leader yourself, you are obviously responsible to drive the transformation and the directives that's coming from the headquarters. On the other side, you're also responsible to take care of your teams, your people here in India. Now, again, putting that lens of people first, there might be times where you have to balance things out. There are a lot of site leaders who are watching our show today. And if it has to come from you as a veteran, what would their advice be to them of in any such scenarios where they have to balance things?
Yeah.
How best can they do it?
No, fantastic. And there is again a very simple, I should say, a playbook for that as well. See, there are certain decisions that you just need to execute because the headquarter gave it. So you need to do it. But then the very simple few questions in front of the the people who are going to be executing, it's a sense of inclusion and inclusivity. Why are we doing this? And I think this is a very powerful story I recently written down. And I'll give that story, of course, to you. That should have an answer. So we were looking forward to bring a very strong capability or transition it out to India from the headquarters as part of a global mandate. We were working round the clock, almost 10, 15, 20 member team, constantly working over the weekend to make sure that we meet the deadline because there were supposed to be certain things associated with that. Now, one fine day at the end of one of the reviews, one of my, engineer, she asked me in a very humble, very apologetic manner, sir, we are doing what we are doing it, but why are we doing it? That actually struck a very strong chord with me. See, they are doing some stuff for us, but of course, I have not made them, the partner to the vision of what that statement is, and what if we don't do that, and what is the impact to the organization if we do that as well.
Right.
So that statement has stuck with me for a very long time, and still it is part of my playbook. Is see, first of all, if you are driving something locally, then you need to include them from an overall ideation point of view, from a thought leader's point of view, because the best ideas a lot of times come from the people who are going to be executing, and the best way to execute also. The second thing is, if you can't include them into a thought process, at least make them part of your, communication, saying, we have to execute this, and this is the reason we have to execute it, and be as transparent, be as open and honest with them, so that then they buy it. And again, there will not be any questions in terms of, we are doing it because somebody is asking it. And then there more than 100% of attitude and soul comes into this as well.
Right.
So for me, it is all about balancing communication, whatever you can communicate, because there are certain non-disclosures, there are certain confidentialities which you need to maintain. But still, as a leader, they say, being a leader is not an easy job, of course. You need to filter down certain things that you obviously can communicate or cannot communicate, but what you can simplify so that people get an idea, but still you're not disclosing what doesn't need to be disclosed. I think that kind of an art or a science, or whichever way you see that. So Sunny, this of course is the silver bullet. Keep the communication as simple, as transparent as possible, and people will definitely give you more than 100% if you know there is a shared success vision and there is a shared objective to why we are doing certain things that we are doing it.
Diversity and inclusivity. I know that is very close to your heart. As a D&I champion yourself, what guidance and what advice do you have for people to ensure that it's not just a tick box exercise, but is something that's practiced in reality and there is a ground reflection upon it?
Truly. And, unfortunately, we are not using the diversity word anymore, obviously, from an industry point of view, but I'll still talk about the inclusion part of it. See, in a single phrase, and I'll elaborate more, is walk the talk. That's a very simple thing. So if you are going through a journey of inclusion within the organization, you first of all need to be obviously making sure that you know what that inclusion means. Who are you dealing with? Because you're dealing with multi-generational workforce. You're dealing with people of certain sections, which obviously were probably not prominent in the platform. Then you are obviously talking about, let's say, certain army, veterans, gender diversity, things like that. So obviously, first of all, you need to know who you are dealing with so that obviously you can customize your whole overall inclusion program accordingly. Now, that inclusion program may look like, here are certain practices that may need to be changed. There are certain things that you may need to do on a daily basis as part of a daily ritual so that people of every sort of a factor or community that we are talking about feel welcome when they come to the work. It is not biased towards anything. And second thing is just like, as an example, so we all celebrate International Women's Day on 7th of March. So this year onwards in Kenview, and again, I'll put it on record, we celebrated International Men's Day also.
Nice.
Exactly. And again, this is, if we just do an inclusion from one section because the world is doing it, and if you want to be a leader in a section, we need to do things in otherwise also. So, and then again, your daily rituals, your daily conversations, how you put across your messages, it should all reflect in your practice rather than just saying once in 1 year you celebrate one thing and for 364 days you forget about it. No, that's not the whole playbook. The playbook is how you can create certain ground rituals so that it is part of your daily practice. Nobody has to remind, that one day in 1 year should be a reinforcement of those 364 days of ritual, rather than just a message and 364 days we are all back to our normal work, of course. And you don't need measures and matrices. Even while if you have it, you are good, of course, but you don't need measurement, because you can see that in the culture, how people come to the work and feel comfortable interacting, feel freedom, and obviously, and those are the people, those kind of cultures which brings more than 100% output for the organization. The inclusivity obviously brings the best of the outcome, that you don't have to give them the problem to solve. They're solving problems because they feel they have a skin in the game as well.
Right.
So it's all about daily rituals. It is all about walk the talk. It is all about taking things out of the spreadsheet and out of the checklist and making things happen from the grounds up. How do you talk? How do you greet? Even a security guard, of your building, you go and walk up to them. That's your inclusion, because just because they're not your employee doesn't mean they don't need or they don't respect that kind of thing as well. So it's all about daily ritual which forms your culture. And the rest, of course, keep reinforcing. After some time, it becomes a subconscious practice, of course.
You are a versatile leader. You are a certified coach yourself. How does that aspect of yours, that qualification of yours, help you shape up the leaders for the future?
Yeah, fantastic, great. And I think, again, I should tell you how this whole thing happened accidentally also, to some extent. So we were all in this very bad COVID period in 2020. So like I said, I constantly keep, think about learning something new.
Right.
And when COVID gave you a lot of that time, because you were not spending time in travel, commute and all that. So I accidentally, again, or it is all you say, that divine intervention, that, I reached out to one of my very, ex-colleague, just to check on this, how things are from a COVID point of view. So then he said, okay, let me call you back, because I'm in a training for a coach. And that, sort of intrigued and triggered me in terms of what is happening. Then after that, he called back and he said he was in a virtual class and he's appearing for ACC, kind of a coach from International Coaching Federation and all that. So then obviously, when I peel more layers and all that, it resonated so much with my own personality, because it is again connected with people. The moment it comes to people, again, things just become very personal to me. So then I took on that whole journey of becoming ACC certified, PCC certified, and learned the art of how do you deal with emotions. How do you deal with, solving somebody's problem without solving, but helping them solve their problems by themselves. This is all about coaching. The biggest skill that you need to be a coach is, of course, you need to be a very patient and strong listener. People don't come to coach so that, coaches can solve the problems for them. It's just that because they need sometimes a soundboard. Sometimes they need direction. And sometimes, their internal, subconscious needs to be questioned. And sometimes they don't have the ability to question that. So they need a coach who can question and sort of trigger.
Sure.
So now, obviously, that perspective was strengthened as part of my coaching practice, learning from other coaches, going through a grill and training and certification program. Now, how I use that is, of course, when somebody is coming and having a conversation with me as my direct reportee or anybody from a one-on-one point of view, I'm a coach to them first, unless, of course, they have come with a straight firefighting problem that needs to be solved. You can't put a coach hat there.
True.
But in the end of every firefighting, there needs to be a coach. How we could avoid this? How can we do something better going forward? Or you see somebody who is looking directionless, who is having a bad day, and you could see that from their body language. Then you put on your coach and see what does that person want to communicate with you. And he's not able to reach out to you because sometimes people wear, see the hat of, oh, he's a senior leader, a multiple level junior, whether he has time and all that. So that freedom, when they see, and they see this person is, first of all, maintaining confidentiality about those conversations. As a coach, I learned that part.
Yep.
And second part is, of course, that, I have somebody who's not in my hierarchy, but is very willing to, hear me out and not solve problem for me, but at least because I need somebody to sort out. The problem is that when you actually grow in the organization, or you're about to grow, you start becoming a little aloof and alone. That's when you need more people who you can sound it off. And hierarchy makes it challenging, because the hierarchy can sometimes use it against you, depends on what the situation is. So that's the whole journey in terms of, making sure that people understand life is not about problem solving. Life is all about coaching. Life is all about hearing somebody out. And a lot of 90% plus problems are solved by just hearing somebody out. Because let's say you are a coach and I have approached you, Sunny, and I'm just sounding off my problem to you. Parallelly, solution is coming to me. But Sunny's channel is, of course, giving me right question to ask myself. And sometimes those are not available. So those kind of things, obviously, I'm helping, the organization, people who reach out to me. I just need to talk to somebody. And in the process, they will say, thank you so much. Great conversation. I think I know what I need to do. And that's the victory. I generally keep it as a journal of myself.
I feel that aspect of yours where you had so much rooting into having a first-hand experience into infrastructure, first-hand experience into delivery, putting your people first, and then now looking at becoming a certified coach yourself that gives you a scientific way of evolving. I think I'm getting to solve this puzzle, why you are who you are. uh, and I think this conversation that we've had so far will add a lot of value. A lot of answers are given here, which I'm sure is going to help a lot of people out there. But let's move on to the next segment with that, which is the rapid fire, where I'm going to ask you a few questions and I want you to respond back to them spontaneously.
Bring it on.
And you haven't seen this question. There's going to be a genuine rapid fire coming your way.
Let's do it.
So, one leadership myth that you would like to break?
I'll probably give two. It's okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So one is, of course, I think I may have mentioned that leaders have the answers to every question. Leaders don't.
Yes, don't.
And that's where the honesty and transparency comes into picture, that, you may not have the answers to all the questions, but then how can you still channelize your experience to make sure that the right people are asking the right questions to unlock the solution that, of course, somebody is trying to find out. And that is number one. Second thing is, of course, the vulnerability part. Leaders can be vulnerable. Just because you're senior enough, you're old enough, does not mean that you can be vulnerable. You can have vulnerable situations, of course. So that is when, if you are a good leader, and if you have those moments, be yourself. You are human first. Again, going back to your employees or your people first, but you are a person yourself as well. Take care of yourself first. Leaders don't need to be always Iron Man who will have answers to everything, and of course they will be very strong not to shed tears and all that. So these two things, obviously, I want all the people and leaders or upcoming leaders to know that it's okay to be vulnerable, and it is okay to say, I don't know the answers, but these are few questions from my side, again, as a coach, in case, that helps you to solve the question and remove those big rocks by asking right questions, enabling the right paths for the people to find solutions.
A book, an idea, or a leader, you can pick whichever you want, and has actually influenced you immensely in your journey.
Okay. Only one? I can ask up to 3. Okay. So the book, I would say 2 books again. Generally, I'm not satisfied with one answers. So one book is, of course, The Infinite Game. And I'm thinking why. Is written by Simon Sinek. He is my absolutely super favorite. The way he brings to life the overall motivational stories or the messages from the daily lives and all that is absolutely super important. And the reason it is very close to me, and I think I'll connect back to GCC also. It talks about the leadership from the lens of people first. It talks about long term. It talks about people centric, and it talks about not the short term fixes, and it takes care of the emotional part as well. Now, connecting back to all his stories and philosophies of this book in The Infinite Game, GCCs are obviously long term play. Number one, GCCs are obviously people centric. GCCs are obviously sort of infinite possibilities that, of course, they are trying to solve for the parent organization as well. And they're long term, and obviously, it's these parameters, if you connect it, it resonates pretty well, because you may have a short term actions and short term results, right. But if you need to be playing a long term game, and that is when the sustainability and the right ROI and the right value for the centers come in as well. So if I have to pick, and I have multiple books, of course, but if I have to pick one at the top from a corporate culture point of view, it is this. The second thing is, which is a Bible of everything, which obviously I'll call it out, 𝗷𝗵𝗏. That's my super favorite, because whether it's a personal life or a corporate life or a whichever life you are into, it has solutions to every problem that you're trying to solve, or at least give you a perspective. And I'm sure I will be preaching to the choir, of course, in terms of what that book, if you really read it well multiple times, it can actually give you what you're looking from an overall Maslow's pyramid, from an actualization perspective. All those things are covered as well. And whenever I'm down and out or something, obviously I have moments, that's one place obviously I'll go out and then take my inspiration. What that situation tells me, need to be thinking about.
Krishna kya kehte hai?
Exactly. Yes, exactly correct. And the leader you talk about, again, couple of answers here. My early life obviously was highly inspired by Narayan Murthy.
Right.
Not because of as a direct mentor, but how his philosophy in terms of when he was expanding and setting up and things in Infosys, right? Discipline, operational excellence, people, passion for talent and passion for India talent. Why it resonates to me now, obviously, because it is all about GCC.
Correct.
You're talking about operational efficiency. You're talking about, obviously, the people, and you're talking about India talent, of course, and the discipline. And again, some of those things I will not be sharing here, of course, which over the period of time it has been said, but not true to that. But again, that is the reason in my early life I was highly inspired by, that kind of a philosophy. But again, if I have to go back to another, a much larger mentor in my life lately for the last couple of decades, it is again, I'll go back and say is Krishnaji. The reason is, of course, one single personality, so many skills. You are a warrior in one side. You are a war strategist without, lifting any equipment and any armor or something. You're a musician by heart. And you obviously face so many challenges in your early life because you were born somewhere, you were raised somewhere, your parents were in distress. And then the most important thing is still smiling always. And when he had to show the power to the world, he just lifted the Govardhan Parvat on one single finger. You don't have to be, you may be very powerful, but you don't have to show to the world in very subtle ways and all that. You can still show that. But when you love someone, which is as good as a flute, you hold it with both the hands. That's like you love somebody, hold it with both the hands, but when you have to show power, only one little finger is enough as well. So from a totality point of view, how he carried the whole world from a knowledge point of view, and I think that resonates with me very well from an overall philosophy, gives me the answer to the problems and situations that I'm in.
And my final question to you from rapid fire standpoint is, if you were to define the future of GCC workplace in one word, what would that be?
Again, one word is difficult, but digitally inclusive, aligned to headquarters still.
Digitally inclusive, aligned to headquarters.
That's it.
It's well summarized. Well, then concludes the rapid fire. But I do have one last question. Dr. Rajesh Puneyani, the way we know you as a veteran in this industry, you've been there, done that. You built and scaled so many operations here in India and across the globe. What's next for you?
So this industry, this community has given me a lot. Very blessed, of course. Now, I think the next leaf of the book that I'm looking forward to is, of course, how do I give it back? Now, give it back to the GCC industry, which has given me so much. Give it back to the IT industry, it has given me so much. Give it back to the people community that I generally stand in for. And, how do I make a value and how do I create a value without expecting anything back in return? So while your corporate entity, your corporate identity and your transactions are all business transactions, you work, you get some salaries and compensation. But the other aspect in the next few years, I'm looking forward to how do I continue to make a larger contribution to make sure that the right systems are in place, right policies continue to get evolved to make GCC obviously more powerful as, the journey goes in the next 5 years. And it remains more people-centric always. And again, digitally, how do we leverage this technology to make life easier for the corporate headquarters, GCCs, people, and the ecosystem as well? There is still a lot that needs to be done, even though there are sort of good players who are looking forward to make a huge difference. But I think that is where, of course, my next, if I have to write my next book onto this is how do I give it back and the underprivileged society, or go back to the universities and academia and see how do I bridge the gap that generally exists between the industry and academia right now in terms of preparing the students currently for the future world of what IT looks like. Is in some ways it's not going to be very good and rosy world, but with a lot of opportunities how they can prepare proactively so that they can be ready, hitting the ground running when the time is right. And second thing is they less disappointments and obviously more readiness. India's growth story, obviously we have all spoken about it. The Indian talent is going to be driving that story, and how we can drive that talent to be ready to drive that story. That is what, of course, I'm looking forward to start tapping.
It has been quite an experience, this conversation that we've had. And some of the aspects of this, just so that the audience understands, it's not that you're facing a camera and you're sharing this. Having known you for so many months now, and having those numerous occasions and opportunities where I pick your brain on knowing more and more about GCC, you're very consistent. And I think that clarity that you have in your mind is what sets you apart. And I'm telling this with a lot of modesty and humility, that a person like you at the helm of things, there is not a single GCC conclave where you're not invited. There is not a single cover page of a book that's written for our industry where you are not there. There are not any list of accolades where your name doesn't appear amongst top 10 GCC leaders of our country. I feel that intellectual value, that calmness, that balance, and most importantly, that vision that you are able to see. We have very few leaders in our industry who can be those game changers. So I am very excited of where the future takes us. And I'm very happy that we as an industry and the Global Capability Center as an opportunity for India continues to have architects like you who are not just leading from front, but selflessly contributing to the entire ecosystem. And that's what makes you a game changer in this whole scheme of things. With that being said, we come to an end of today's session, but it was my honor and my immense pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you so much, Dr. Rajesh.
Thank you so much, Sunny, and it's pleasure. And I'm this platform is absolutely a very powerful medium, of course. Through this platform, maybe one final message to my fellow, people who are watching this: be very mindful for what you're going through. There is a sense of FOMO in certain ways in terms of GCCs are growing, and I am not in the thick of that action. Continue to make small little baby steps. Keep making a difference in the larger ecosystem rather than just looking at your individual GCC or individual aspiration. Those will get fulfilled undoubtedly, but if you want to make a larger difference, you will definitely be making a difference to yourself and giving back to the society or the industry. Nothing is more fulfilling and satisfying than that kind of a feeling, of course. So let's continue to work together. It is not just me journey. It is not just a journey of a few other leaders. It's a journey of everyone collectively together. One or two GCCs successful or a few successful is not going to make India a shining story. Everyone needs to collectively move forward as well. So with that message, thank you so very much for having me. Pleasure, honor. I can't describe that feeling in words, of course. Thank you so much.
The feeling is mutual. Thank you so much once again. So, ladies and gentlemen, boy, did we just talk to the Sri Krishna of GCCs. Dr. Rajesh Puneyani has really inspired us and showed us the vision that all of us can move forward with a lot of confidence. With that being said, this is the end of the episode. Please continue to subscribe to our channel so that we are able to bring such meaningful conversations at your doorstep. It's me signing off. Thank you so much.